Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing an addendum to my review for Game of Thrones, Season 3, Episode 9, The Reigns of Castamere. This one's going to be talking about, specifically, spoiler warning, the death of Robb Stark, Catelyn Stark, Talisa, and whether or not that all should have happened. They all should have died in the series. Okay, so this is something I wanted to talk about for quite a while. It's applicable to both Game of Thrones and to A Song of Ice and Fire, of course, because obviously Game of Thrones is just basically your television version of A Song of Ice and Fire. Acted out, you've got the series, you've got the episodes, but it's almost identical to the book. In this situation, the main differences with this discussion will be the addition of Talisa as a character, obviously a lot different from A Song of Ice and Fire. Her getting pregnant, her wanting to name the baby Eddard. It just adds to the entire situation. It adds to the tragedy that it is. It makes it, and how much does it add? I'd say it actually adds quite a bit, because not only are you killing Robb Stark and Catelyn, of course, but then, and all the wolves and and most of his men and, immediate entourage and things of that nature. But you're also killing, his wife, brutally, by the way, in the television series, in the stomach. The whole thing with the baby, wanting to name it Eddard. It just adds to it, and almost like a curse is when she said it, as if they were cursed. Which they kind of are with the whole black magic Stannis and Melisandre blood ritual thing. So they kind of are cursed. But just, to add to it, to make it even worse or even more of a tragedy than it was in A Song of Ice and Fire. Should it have happened? Was it a good direction to go for the show? How do I feel about the deaths? Let's talk about it. So I do this for The Walking Dead almost every time we have a major character death, and so it makes sense that, I'd want to give my thoughts on it for Game of Thrones, and other people want to hear what I think about it, and also, maybe talk a little bit about what they think about it, so please feel free, use the comments and talk about it, what you think. Now, specifically with regards to whether you would prefer the series had Robb Stark have lived and avenged his father or not, please comment about that. And I think that's the biggest question here is, would you, in hindsight, like the series better, having it be this tragedy, this story of just absolute tragedy from the point of fans of the Starks, or would you rather have had the story sort of go the direction that might be the more typical, predictable situation, which would be that, you'd have Ned Stark be killed by Joffrey and the Lannisters, but then afterwards you would have Robb avenge him. And then let's say after that, it wouldn't hurt A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones overall, I don't think, too much, because you could still change the rest of the story to work in the other things, like Daenerys and Stannis. Let's say, obviously Stannis and Robb, Robb calling himself the King of the North, Stannis doesn't like that. Mance Rayder is also involved, so you could have these other characters come in afterwards. But specifically with regards to the story arc of between the Starks and the Lannisters, would the story be better if Robb would have stayed alive for a while longer to avenge his father, and then maybe after that, maybe you could kill him off? Don't necessarily have to kill Talisa. You could have her live, maybe give birth to the baby, that kind of stuff. All that would be good. Would you like the story better if they went that route, or would you like it better the way it is now, where you just kill them off right then and there? And it is shocking. Boom, it happens, and it's like, wow, it's crazy for if you read the books, or if you're watching the series. However, you were first exposed to the story play out. Which way would you prefer the story? Me personally, in regards to this death and everything of it, yes, it is sort of reminiscent of some of your Shakespearean tragedies. these types of stories. And I mean, it is medieval too, so it has a lot of that kind of feel to it. But as a fan of the series that's followed the series since the beginning, I have to say, if they would have went the other direction, and you would have had Robb Stark avenge his father, and let's say the Karstark men did not leave, and maybe you could have something similar to this happen still with Walder Frey turn on him. But let's say he survives, maybe he gets shot with an arrow in the shoulder or something, but is able to, because it kind of makes sense because it was like an assassination, but at the same time it kind of doesn't. His guard was down. Bolton did, sabotage him and stab him and everything like that. But let's say you would have written it to had to go the other direction. So maybe you would have had Robb had that happen, but then Robb survived. Everybody else, all the main members survive, get out of there, and then kill Walder Frey, and then have the battle continue and see some huge battle scenes at King's Landing, Castle Rock, any of these types of locations, however you want to have it play out. Some huge, like battles between all of the Stark men, everybody, and the Lannisters. That would be epic, man. And then have Robb win, and then shortly after, maybe the next year or two, have Stannis or somebody attack, and have Robb's men so weak after taking the capital and stuff, they're not able to defend, and somebody else take control. But at least it would feel like justice. It would feel like, as Jaime Lannister would say, it would feel like he avenges Ned, and then even if you kill him off afterwards, the story, I think personally, would have been a lot better. Would have been vastly improved over what it was. Yes, it does get that emotional response from you, like, oh my God, it's so sad, it's so terrible. Because I would say, honestly, after watching episode The Reigns of Castamere, it's probably the saddest episode of any TV series I've ever seen. The most tragic, the most traumatizing, too. I'm still not, completely like, I mean, it's so traumatic. It's so it's so crazy to kill off all three of them at once, like that. Talisa and Robb and Catelyn, all within like 5 minutes or like 2 minutes. Have her stabbed in the stomach like that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's the most tragic thing I've ever seen in a TV series ever. Which some people say that's a good thing. Some people say, oh, that means that you care about the characters. That means that, Martin's doing a good job with the writing and everything like that. I mean, I guess so, to get that. It is good to get an emotional response out of your readers and at least have them care, because the worst thing that could happen is if they don't care. And obviously the ratings for the TV series will increase at this point because of everything. Everybody will be talking about it. And you do get that immediate, thing. But I think next year in Season 4, it may suffer as a result. Because you may not you do not have those core central characters that we've grown to love over time. And you don't get to see that huge, epic conclusion battle between Tywin and Robb, or just the Lannisters and the Starks overall, just that huge conclusive battle between them. So I view it as an anticlimactic death. Yes, it is unpredictable. It's a twist. You wouldn't see it coming. True. But at the same time, you'd think at least if Robb was going to die, you'd probably want it to happen against not somebody like Walder Frey, some sniveling old, ugly bastard, and Bolton. You'd probably want it to be one of the Lannisters, one of the top ranking on the battlefield or something like that. It might not be as realistic, but story-wise, when I think back about the story and when I look back on the story, I'd have to say that the story would have benefited greatly from that. And I think it detracts from the greatness of Game of Thrones significantly. Just because it's unpredictable, just because you get the shock value, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt the series. Because, if you want to go by the pretense that sooner or later every character is going to die at some point, to have a fan favorite like that with Robb, at least in the TV series, the books might be different, because they did change a lot of things in the series, and the angles are different, the points of view are different. Talisa is a great example of that, and it goes on further than that. But yeah, I definitely think that the series, Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, would have been much better. Much, much, much better in the long run. When you look back on it as a viewer, it would have been a much better series had you have had that climactic, final climax, final battle between, Robb Stark and the Lannisters, and had Robb win, kill Tywin, kill Joffrey, kill Cersei, let Tyrion live because he was already tried, which his mother was there for. You see, it can work out nicely. It can work out nicely. Instead of having him die this way, just because it's unpredictable, and then the events will happen in the future, which I don't want to spoil right now in this video, with the Lannisters and everything, and which ones of them will die, and how they die. I don't want to spoil, I don't want to talk about that, but you get what I'm saying. It just would have felt more like a just series. And even some people say, well, it's realistic this way. It's like the real world. Others, I've heard in the comments actually say that they believe that A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, is actually not really like the real world in terms of things like that. It's actually darker. And that Martin's zeitgeist or worldview is actually darker than the real world really is. And I might have to agree with that. The way he stuffs down you, the viewer's throat, that if you are evil, like the Hound just said to Arya, your kindness one day that's going to get you killed, something along those lines. And it seems like he's constantly stuffing that down our throats. Jaime and Brienne with that farmer guy they saw on the road before they got caught, and Jaime lost his hand. Over and over again, he's trying to stuff it down the reader's throats, the viewer's throats. That so characters in Game of Thrones are unethical, are bad people, are evil, they have an advantage and they will win. I don't think in the real world that's necessarily true, because being kind to people, yes, it might be an advantage sometimes to be that way, ruthless and things like that, in politics and stuff, it definitely, I would say, probably would help. But what about being kind to others? I mean, fear is stronger than love, I would say. Fear is stronger than love. But at the same time, that's not that you should discount love that people have for one another, how people can admire each other and become brothers in arms and help each other out when they need it, when you're a really nice person, like, for example, the Stark family pretty much is. So those are my thoughts on it. I think it was the worst death I've ever seen in a TV series. I think it was absolutely anticlimactic. I think it was badly written, and I think it definitely would have, the series as a whole would have been much, much, much better if they would have gone that other way. However, I mean, maybe some of you guys hate Robb Stark. Maybe some of you guys hate the Starks overall. But, you see, I don't see why you would keep reading or watching if you hate the Starks. Because near the beginning of the series, most of the time we spend is with the Starks. So if you're still reading or you're still watching and you're thinking to yourself, I don't like the Starks, well, why are you watching? Wouldn't you turn off? Wouldn't you go do something else because you're not interested in the characters to take up most of the show? I mean, if you don't like them, then I wouldn't think you would even keep watching for the most part, unless you just like medieval stories and things like this. But that's my thoughts on it. I've talked about enough in videos. This will be the last video I do discussing this. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there very specifically. Let me know what you guys felt about the death. How did you feel when you watched it? How do you feel looking back on it? And how do you think the story would be either better or worse had Robb Stark had lived, Catelyn had lived, and defeated the Lannisters, and then maybe in the future Stannis or somebody else kill him? I think it would have been way more epic. It may have been more predictable, but way more epic. Maybe not as realistic, but again, we have blood rituals, we have pyromancers, we have, all these things. You want to talk realism, you have guys coming back from the dead, you got the Red God, all the nonsense with Melisandre. Is realism really, is that really what you're going to use as an argument? I mean, it's like talking about realism in a comic book series, or something like that, or a superhero, series. It's just like, doesn't really make sense. Not really. Okay, I think I've gone on for long enough, so please feel free to discuss in the comments. Do a video response if you like. Heavily interesting topic, talking about Robb Stark's death. Trev says, wrong, no, hated it, don't like it. The series will suffer because of it. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you for the next one. This is Trev, and I'm saying peace.